Welcome back to the Money Hill. Modern Warfare 2 is here, baby. The repeat of Modern Warfare 2019. We are the Best 3 Network. We're going to be taking you through our top 6, bottom 6 in 2 separate episodes. And we'd just like to pose the question straight out, of course. Who's going to win the fucking CDL, right? Starting at the bottom of the average rankings this year, to nobody's surprise, can I get a little drum roll? Las Vegas Legion coming in at number 12. Average Best of 3 ranking of 11.7.
Wow.
On the podcast.
Wow.
So, somebody didn't put them at 12th. I'll say that that's me.
Okay.
I have them at the 11th best team this year.
Sure.
I think they have enough star power on this roster to at least not come in last this year. And that's what I'm hoping. I think LAN presence will be the important thing for Las Vegas Legion. I think Temp performed on LAN last year. Clayster is a LAN player for life. TJ, better performances on LAN. And then Prolute, he was iffy, but he does the job that kind of iLLeY fit in for OpTic Texas. So a little bit of the dirty work on that end. I'd love to hear why you guys have him 12th. It's no surprise to see, though.
Nikki?
Despite being a big Clayster fan, I have them 12th because I just don't trust Temp and TJ. I think you're fair enough, like Temp does show up on LAN, but his attitude problems are well documented.
Okay,
he has been kicked around. Just recently, clips got leaked of him telling his coach to fuck off. That is exactly the attitude you want for a brand new team to come together. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Temp gets the boot at some point.
That's
TJ
shocking.
TJ also not the most impressive at the end of last year. It's talked about how he didn't like original Modern Warfare. I'm not sure he's going to like this Modern Warfare.
Same game.
There's just a lot of issues with this team that I can see going wrong. Maybe they have the potential upside. It would be great to see Clayster doing well. I'm a fan of his, but I don't know. I'm concerned.
It is interesting. I will say this outright, and it might influence your rankings moving forward later in the season, but
It won't.
There is less capacity for cracked movement in this game.
Look, I don't need to hit on this too much more. This is a team that has, from the very top of management down to the players themselves, just not been a good team or a good organization. I have no belief that, Nikki, as you mentioned, Temp and his attitude issues. Clayster, also just an absolute powder keg, someone always looking to explode. Clayster last year was the reason why Subliners, started to fall off. They released them, they got better. And then what ends up happening is he had a 0.84 KD last year, his worst all time. And so this is just a guy that I'm not going to think that this is going to be a comeback year for him. He's old, he's washed up. I don't have a lot of expectations for this team. To me, they'll be happy if they win 1-2 games all season.
It's going to be crazy when Vegas wins it all.
Yeah, I will say this, like, just you hating them and still hating on Clayster when it literally has come out of those Crim 6 makes me want to support this team, so I'm putting them top 6 above the Ultra.
Terrible.
That's all I can say.
All right, well, coming in at number 11 with an average best of 3 ranking of 11 exactly is the Florida Mutineers. Nikki putting them at 10th, Chris putting them at 11, and myself putting them as the worst team in the league this year. I think we talked about it a little bit prior to the episode. They lost their 2 best players in Owakening and Skyz. I can say as much as I can about that. I think maybe they took a little bit away from the capacity for other players to show out on the map, but it was also the only reason that they won games realistically last year. Now, they do have Major Maniac, who if they get to map 5s, they will clutch up and win those. He doesn't lose map 5s.
They're not going to make it to map 5.
That's been proven time and time again. Yeah, well, that's the other problem. They have to get there. Now, on the flip side of this, they do have 2 rookies. Seattle Surge came in with 2 rookies last year. I would be very happy to be wrong about having them as the worst team in the league. I just don't really see it with this roster. 12th, I feel like justified there. We all have them bottom 3. Lads,
yeah,
take it away.
Look, I had them, I think it was in 10th. Like you said, they lost the 2 best players, in my opinion, in Skyz and Owakening. There is the potential that these rookies are going to come in and they're going to revamp the whole roster. But I think it's a tall order to compare them to what is arguably 2 of the best. Look, there's a potential they will punch upwards, but based on historical performance, the way these players have performed, the way the org has performed, I'm just like, they're a 10th place team.
Yeah. This is a team that came in 9th last year, barely missed playoffs. They were tied. It came down to a tiebreaker. And now they've kind of went through, gutted the team, right? To your point, Skyz and Owakening, to me, were the big winners from last year and the reason why they had the success that they did. Talking to you guys does make me start to reevaluate my rankings, right? Because we went and did our rankings before chatting. And I do kind of love the 2 rookies coming in. Nobody knows what to expect. There's not a lot of film on them. And so To me, this is a team that they may have some early success. I think by the middle to end of the season, they're going to have scouted. They're going to not be as good. And I'm going to stick with my 11th place ranking. But you're trying to sway me, and I appreciate the enthusiasm for the team.
I actually expect their Search and Destroy to be ridiculously good for some reason. But that's the major maniac factor, in my opinion.
Yeah,
now, coming in at number 10 and ranking a little bit above their average ranking, 9.3, London Royal Ravens. Nikki, you've got them a little bit lower than that at 11. I personally have them at 8. I actually think that this roster, while it's not a playoff contender realistically, I think they have enough pop-off potential to beat a couple teams that they probably shouldn't. But I also could see this team losing to a lot of teams that they shouldn't as well. So I think to put them in the 10th spot is fair. I actually have them at 8, but because I think there are teams worse than them. But I think they'll punch above their weight class a decent amount at points. And they'll beat up on the lower teams, for sure.
I think
that's just where I'm coming from.
It's a great point. And like the way I have my rankings is less numerical ranking, but more of the S, A, B, C, D. And they're in the D slot, which is essentially not making playoffs. E is like 3 wins. That's where I have the Legion at the moment. D is the Mutineers and the Ravens, where it's I'll be surprised if they make playoffs. With the Ravens, they lost Afro, who I think was the best player there. aSim, I'm like, meh. They're running a 5-man roster. They haven't, I don't think, even confirmed who the 4-man roster is, which that makes me concerned. Are they competing for spots, or is it a flexible roster? We'll have to see. It's not a playoff roster. That's it. So if you want to argue that it's like a 9th or 10th place team, I'll give that to you, but it's just not a playoff roster, and that's what matters to me.
I have them in the playoffs at top 8.
You do have them in the playoffs, all right.
Look, again, these are the teams. I think we're going to find it hard to disagree too much on this. Yeah. Having 0... I think I liked him last year. Having Pollock step in was also kind of impressive with him. aSim, I think, is a very controversial player, right? And so if I'm going to be hard on Octane, if I'm going to be hard on Clayster, I think I need to kind of be a bit more tough on aSim. And so I have him at 9th, and I'm not going to, I think they're going to miss playoffs. They showed a lot of progress last year, so this will be a huge step back based on their rankings last year, right? They finished the season in 4th, I think. And so for this team now to...
But a lot of that was early success.
Totally. It's kind of a fall-off season, and I'll be interested to see if collective minds here are right or wrong.
New York Subliners coming in at our 9th slot with a perfect 9.0 ranking across the network, or across the 3 hosts here. I have them at 10. It's hard for me to see this roster really working out. I feel like Priestahh has tournaments where he shows up a decent amount and gets the team a lot of points, but he also just is... sometimes, I don't want to say fraud, that's not the right word, but he's such a liability on the map at points that this is kind of where I draw my line for New York not being great this year. I think they have a chance to maybe win a major with this roster, but I also think that at points it's going to look really bad. And we know that their organization is willing to make changes very quickly based on last year.
Yep.
So... that, and then also KiSMET. I think KiSMET popped off for the time being that he was on New York last year, but I don't know if that's sustainable into this year. And I really do like him as a player. He's extremely likable, and I really hope he has a lot of success this year. I just want to see the same form that we saw out of him last year and not the form that we saw in Modern Warfare 2019.
So this is the team I had the hardest time ranking. I have them in 7th place, but ultimately what matters is they're in the C bracket. And the C bracket for me is either a team that, if they figure their shit out, is suddenly a contender for that top 6. Reason here is, like, obviously HyDra is a great player. Skyz, one of the half of the duo we were talking about on Mutineers. KiSMET, I had less questions about. It was actually more around Priestahh and his volatility.
I agree.
That was a big question mark for me, is like, can Priestahh deliver? Problem there is that the org doesn't necessarily give them the space to deliver. So if they have a bad tournament and they need time to sort it out, will they be able to? I don't know if they will. I don't know if Subliners will allow them to. The other thing is, we've seen HyDra in the postseason. He was volatile himself. He was very opinionated. He was happy to throw his teammates on the bus and say that. Some of it was fairly justified from what he said, but he also said he hates the org and never wants to play for them. And then they were like, "Nah, we're keeping you."
He left and resigned,
and we're forcing you to resign, which is always a great thing when an org forces a player to play for them. When I hear about that, that concerns me. If Priestahh starts doing bad, do they just kick him off? Does HyDra get angry at him? Do they butt heads? And if that happens, I think this org implodes big time, and they just tank. That's why I struggled with this team. Potentially, great upside, could win, but also could implode hard.
To me, Priestahh, unequivocally, the big, unknown here. I do like Skyz coming in. They're moving him back to like his main AR role, where he's much more familiar, much happier, much more consistent. To me, this is a team that has some upside. I ended up putting them at 10th, below the Royal Ravens. Could those flip? Maybe. I just, it's funny, right? As you go through doing the rankings, you look at the teams and you start filling up. You're like, man, these guys, and like you're editing it and you're having to slide down.
At the bottom, especially.
And someone ends up coming in 9th. Someone ends up coming in 10th. Someone comes up, in 8th. And so right there, I mean, look, last year, this is another team that barely snuck into playoffs. Do I see this team being right on that cut line again? I do. So I think us collectively having them at 9th feels about right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the common thread here is Priestahh among the conversation, and I think we've seen him at times in the past, especially like Black Ops 4 era, unbelievable player. And he's lifted a lot of rosters up along the way, but in the last couple of years, I think we've seen him drag teams down more than lift them up, which is, disappointing to see for a player so talented. So, hey, if you're watching the episode, Priestahh, we're wishing the best for you. Want to see you perform this year. And we want to see New York be good, because then Chris will actually go to the match.
I mean, they are a
100%.
team that I think if they are good, they will be very entertaining.
Oh, yeah,
They'll
it'll be extremely
good
team.
And I will say, if they're bad...
But that's a big if.
If they're bad, though, I think, to your point, like I think they'll look to make a switch quite quickly. They're going to kick his ass out.
They've got an interesting sub too in Fame.
Yeah.
Oh, not Fame. Oh, Wardy. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Little international player there.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 8 with an average ranking of 8 across our rankings. And for me personally, number 9, Los Angeles Guerrillas. I don't know if they've realistically fixed any of the problems that I have with last year. I think Spart, again, won great tournament, but did not impress me past that. He found a gun that really worked, and he destroyed people with it. It worked very well in their map selection because it gave them a very good flex option. And then right after G8'd, he got extremely nerfed from that. Yeah. I think bringing RCs in is an upgrade over Slasher, especially.
Yes.
I think cooler heads will prevail on this roster, which is a good thing for them moving forward. However, I still have huge questions about Neptune and Spart. Will Neptune just kind of fall out of it by week 3 again? Like that happened last year.
It did happen.
And then Spart, like, is he still going to be nerfed to the point where he was? I think people figured him out pretty quickly. I have them at 9 again. I don't think they're gonna make playoffs at all, and I'm worried about this roster.
Yeah, I have them at 8.
But if you were worried about him, you would have had him lower than 9.
I'm not worried about them enough to have them losing to some. They're better than Florida. Yeah. I think they're better than Legion. I think Subliners could beat them, and if they do, they'll be looking like very good.
That's why I have Subliners above them, and I think they're better. I think the question mark for me is Rokkr. Is Rokkr worse or better than these guys? You nailed it in this sense of this is a smack bang in the middle team of last year's Spot had one incredible tournament they won and then was dog shit. I'll just straight up say it, like terrible player. Neptune, as much as I liked him and he got his shot, he did not deliver there. And then I'm shocked you didn't bring up Hugh. This is like, which one are we getting?
I'm biased.
But which one are we getting?
I like Hook a lot.
You might like him, but
you get the nuke all the time.
You might like him, but do you think he has been consistently good?
On land.
All right. There's a big caveat
but
there.
Here's the thing. Online qualifiers are like 3/4 of the season.
So it's like, which Hook are you going to get? And I think that's going to be the crux, because we have our question marks on those two. But I am actually looking at Hook and saying, like, well, which one are you getting? Are you getting the good one? Because if you're getting the good one,
sure,
you'll be a potential playoff contender. If you don't get the good one, you're going to 9th, 10th place, and that's it. And RCD's is, I think he is a ceiling raiser, not a floor raiser. So in the sense of, like, at FaZe, there were times where people like, he wasn't delivering. But I think overall, he made the team better in clutch moments, in plays with his mind. But when you give him floor level players, there's only so much you can raise that. And that's my issue.
I don't know if they're a floor level roster, to be clear. I think he's more of a floor raiser than a ceiling raiser. I'm actually going to push back there. Really? I think he brings up the minimum skill level by a decent amount. Yeah, he's like a very good backstop. Now, here's the problem with FaZe last year is that you weren't getting to the backstop.
Please tell me what was wrong with the best
time,
team in the CDL that just couldn't win a
most of the time you're just getting eliminated by the other 3 players. So his ability to backstop any windfall on their roster is just not really there, and the stats were never going to be that good. So I think he brings up the floor more than he.
See, I was talking about more the strategic elements, like the in-game comms, the in-game strategy, that like big brain stuff.
But this is also an important point, right? You also now have Marky B coming on as the head coach, who I think is going to create a great leadership and great strategy. Plus, I think the point that you're really trying to make is Arceus is a leader, right? This is a guy who is a rock that holds a team, a field general that holds a team down and will allow for these young guns to really flourish. This is a team, they didn't make playoffs last year. I think this team outperforms their standing last year. Look, I have them at 7, right? So I think I have them higher than both of you guys, but, not too much higher.
All right, coming in at number 7. And you guys are probably a little shocked that they got raised based on your rankings. And I'm going to let you guys go first because it's my fault that they're number 7. Or not my fault, but my prediction. Average ranking of 7 on the podcast, so flat there.
Okay.
Minnesota Rokkr.
Okay.
I'll let one of you guys lead here. I'm really interested as to what you have to say, and you're also not going to believe what I have.
Should I kick it off, or do you want to?
Kick it off.
Nikki,
kick it off.
You have them, Nikki, at 9. I have them at 8. So, Scott, that must mean you have them at 6 or 5. I can do math. So...
No, you'll find out.
Rokkr were a weird team that you kind of hoped were good at the start of the year, and they just never made it.
Love the org.
Love the org. I think it's a
great name.
It's just a team that I just think moved kind of sideways. Attach and Afro, those are cool. That I'm totally fine with. But when you add in the 2 worst players from the Ultra, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Whoa.
We're straight up. We all said it. It's like
we're saying
there were issues.
Bance
What were the
is worse
issues?
than
What were the
Kleenex?
issues with
That's crazy.
Sorry.
That's crazy. You're saying Bance is worse than Kleenex.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Fine.
For
that's a whole like another thing. But like,
no, that's right.
I think Ultra kept the good 2, and Rokkr picked up the 2 that you're kind of a bit like you're less enthused about, and so it's hard for me to say like, hey, this is a top 6 team when I'm very apathetic about 50% of the roster.
Toronto also took on Rokkr's outstanding liability from last year. So
they took Standy.
Let's just talk. We'll get to that.
But this is why, by the way, this is why
Subliners
and Røkkr, for me, and even LAG on the lower cap are in that C bracket. Because these are the 3 teams, to me, that have a potential upside that if actually the chemistry works or the game works or whatever it is, suddenly I think they're in the contention for the top 6. That's the C roster. That's like the C bracket. They crash and burn, and then they're going to be trash. And like this is the C bracket is like basically the gatekeeper for the top 6 and bottom 6 teams. And these 3 teams are hovering in that space.
Chris, take it away.
Yeah, Attach always gets a piece of the pie, right? Scoot, this is your line. Like sometimes there's just a good trade, right? Like sometimes 2 players aren't working on one team, or a player or whatever it might be isn't working on the team, so you improve the chemistry by getting rid of them, and you bring in somebody else, it helps, and then the person that you send out also helps the other team. I have the Minnesota Rokkr at 8th place, so last year they finished at 11th, so I do have them making the playoffs. I think they have improved by bringing in Bance and Cammy. As the Ultra supporter that I am, was a bummer to see Ultra kind of fall apart a little bit last year in a way that, but they made their move. They got rid of Bance, they got rid of Cammy. And so to me, it's a good trade to me. Good trade between these 2 orgs, basically. I could easily see this Rokkr team, way outperform. They did perform on the previous Modern Warfare. And so for them to come back into this version of the game, I think it will be
That's
powerful.
A great point.
I think they will be good.
All right, here's where the beef starts. Minnesota Rokkr, number 4.
What?
Top 4.
Okay.
Top 4 team right here.
Wow.
One of the issues that I've had with Afro's play over the last couple of years, he is absolutely cracked.
Yeah.
And there's a whole load of aggression in there. Same goes for Bance. I think Bance and Kleenex worked well as a sub duo in Cold War.
Yep.
And they traded off each other really well.
Yep.
However, we saw that fall short in Vanguard, but the aggression stayed
we're not
there
gonna
to an
blame.
extent.
We're not going to blame people for their Vanguard performance. Vanguard was a fucking trash game.
This is clearly Attach's team based on the just
Correct.
age discrepancy, veteranship that he has, the leadership role that he's been given, and Minnesota Rokkr trusts him with. If there's anyone that can teach aggression with restraint, it's Attach. He knows it like the back of his hand. He has been in the league for so long. He's a great leader, as we saw last year at points, I think. And I think he will only raise the floor for Afro and Bance. I expect Afro to have an insane year this year individually. And then I also think that Cammy, we're forgetting Cammy from Modern Warfare 2019.
Right.
That's what we're forgetting a little
I'm
bit.
not forgetting.
And I think he is, at points, one of the best flex players in the game. I love the guy individually. I didn't love him on Ultra in their system last year. But this, for me, is a team that will outperform expectations of the league at a great rate. I don't know if they compete with top 3 yet. Well, that's yet to be seen. I think it's possible. I think if the team works there, it's not as much like Cold War in terms of teamwork, but I think they will have great teamwork. And I rate this team super highly. Plus, you got a good sub on the bench if things aren't working out in Fame. And you also have Saint and Looney now as your coaches. So I'm expecting really good things from Rokkr this year. I'm extremely bullish on them.
You might have
I'd love
me
to hear
up
some
them a little bit
pushback.
there. I actually really like your arguments. I gotta say, I do love
really
the
good
Afro
system.
angle, but the callback to Cammy in Modern Warfare, I'm like, oh shit, maybe he's right.
Yeah.
You know,
Dude, I mean, if
I'm
you
buying.
got
All right,
Bance,
I'll buy.
you got Bance and Afro flying at you, and this is the thing that I really. Like, what really stands out about submachine gun players is, right, like, they can make their crack plays. You've got Simp and aBeZy. They can absolutely 180 you in the middle of a match and just destroy you. But the thing that makes them some of the greatest players ever is their ability to show restraint in situations and read the map when they need to. Like, you will see aBeZy put himself in a situation where he doesn't need to go get a kill. He's going and playing spawns and playing really, really slow, getting behind people, taking routes, and then he's coming in and just assassinating you from behind. And then you're like, oh shit, we just lost spawns. Now we've lost current hill too. Like, this game's out of control at this point. I'm expecting a few of those plays, hopefully this year. And I think Rokkr will put that system into place really well. And that's why I have him top 4. Very bullish on him. Love the org too. Would love to see him succeed. I think it would be really good for Call of Duty, especially, you know, how much they reach out to the fans and try to get people out there. But, you know, that's the bottom 6, I guess, for us, considering that's a top 4 team for me right there. And if you're interested in hearing about our top 6, which I'm sure you can guess by now, hopefully, tune in for the next episode, you know, on the Best 3 Network.
They know who the teams are. They just don't know the order.
They don't know the order, which this is also going to get very interesting. There's a lot of beef next episode.
Oh yeah, I've seen BNB's list, and I'm like, this is outrageous, disrespectful.
There's a lot of beef next episode. We're going to get a lot of drama. Drum it up a little bit.
Let's go.
And it should be a fun episode. But if you want to join the conversation, join our Discord. It's down in the description.
Can you
below,
imagine
as well as our
listening
Twitter.
to the bottom 6 and not listening to the top 6?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing that either. That would just be that's horrible showmanship, if anything. But yeah, we'll be throwing our tier list in there as well as the ranking graphic that I have up on my screen right now. So if you're interested in checking that out, join the Discord, join the conversation. Got a small community going, and would love to see you guys out there. And also, thank you for all the support on our recent videos. It's been a hell of a ride. It's lovely to see.
We're not going anywhere.
In the comments.
We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, we're absolutely going nowhere. And hopefully we can make some new COD fans this year. But with that being said, check out part 2 and peace out.
Bye, everyone.
Toodaloo. See you soon.